In a previous video, I mentioned that I do a lot of storytelling, mythic storytelling, and it's an incredibly powerful tool, a powerful way, as I mentioned with the framework that I use. There's another video on this page that you can go and look at to understand a little bit more. But to really access the neocortex and a different brainwave where we can be far more effective, far more creative, far more innovative. Okay. Um, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a powerful story. And it's written in the spirit of these indigenous cultures that I've been exposed to and trained in. And when it comes to these stories, I invite you to just get comfortable, sit back, close your eyes, and simply notice what you notice. But to help with noticing what you notice, just take a moment with your eyes closed and just, this is not the story now, just picture a light coming down from the top of your head, slowly moving down, scanning across your body. And just notice points in your body where you feel expansive openness and ease, and where you feel tightness and constriction and maybe some stress. And just notice what you notice. Again, we're not trying to judge or understand. And once you make your way, this scanning down to your toes, keep your eyes closed and allow yourself to just take in the story. Don't worry about figuring anything out. And don't try to have an experience. Just let whatever happens, happens. Okay? And so I'm going to tell you the story. There once was a kingdom with a prince who loved to dream. And one morning he rushed into the royal hall to speak with his father. Father, I had the most amazing dream, he exclaimed. I jumped off the cliff of doom, and a spirit took hold of my hand. And when I looked down, I saw I was holding your hand, and you were holding Mother's hand, and on in a chain of people, as far as the eye could see. And we soared over the most beautiful land you could imagine. Son, I don't have time to hear any more of your dreams. It seems you've forgotten there's a brutal war going on that threatens the entire kingdom. But Father, you don't get it. The spirit holding my hand was your father. The prince tried to explain, but the king cut him off. My father died like all the other brave men out there, fighting in this war to defend this castle, not running around all day with their heads in the clouds. The king turned toward his most senior warrior and he asked, where are we today on this damn war? The end is nearly in sight, my king, but we must stay committed more now than ever before, the warrior emphasized. Father, don't you see the war? It's never ended. It's been going on forever. Your father and his father and his father before him, and as far back as anyone can remember. Enough, yelled the king. If we stop fighting, our kingdom's surely going to be overtaken, and we either face death by sword or something far worse. Now, you might be wondering what could be worse than death. Well, you see, the back of this kingdom butted up against the top of a huge cliff. And the cliff was so high, it had a deep, dark, permanent blanket of clouds that extended out and below as far as the eye could see. No one knew how far it dropped, but legend spoke of a never-ending fall, a fall that would only cease if God spared you by disturbing a terrible dragon that used the clouds as a blanket to sleep. If this dragon of doom, as the locals called it, if it awakened, it would viciously tear you to pieces and consume you. And while not particularly pleasant to consider, it was a lot better than an eternity plummeting to your death. And because of this, the cliff was called the Cliff of Doom. Now, for generations, the Cliff of Doom provided security from an attack from behind, but now it seemed an inescapable threat. And the prince stormed off, frustrated and feeling like no one understood him. The prince knew the fighting had taken its toll on his father, his mother, and the whole kingdom. No one knew why they were fighting anymore or what they were actually fighting against. They just had always fought and continued to do so. But the prince, well, just kept feeling curious about the fact that no one knew anyone else who had jumped off the Cliff of Doom. He also had never seen any sign of a dragon. The only thing he ever heard from within the dark clouds were sounds of birds, blue jays, cardinals, and eagles, to be exact. So for many days, all the prince could do was sit by the edge of the cliff and stare down at the clouds, unable to do anything else but wonder if through them emerged the beautiful land he saw in his dream. Weeks and weeks went by, and at some point, the fighting of the never-ending war intensified. And it became so bad so suddenly, the whole kingdom had no choice but to begin retreating toward the cliff. And the prince, he saw them approaching, and he thought, this is it. This is the moment. He quickly explained to everyone that they had to jump. It was the only way that wasn't certain death. But yet again, no one would listen to him. They all looked at him like he was crazy. And so the prince had enough of trying to convince people. He turned and he ran as fast as he could toward the edge of the cliff, and he jumped. And immediately he was consumed with a kind of darkness that was paralyzing. And out of nowhere, he heard a roar scarier than any sound he could imagine. And it got louder and louder. And then moments later, he found himself slamming onto the back of a beast he was sure had to be the dragon of doom. In that moment, there was just enough light for him to take in the sight of the dragon. He noticed its right side looked like a monstrous blue jay, and the left side was bright red, like blood, more red than any cardinal he had ever seen. And its wings, they were shaped huge like an eagle. But he only had a moment to take in the sight of the beast because it suddenly started convulsing its body, trying to throw him off. The boy did everything he could to hold on. He knew he had to. Moments later, the dragon started diving at such a speed the prince could barely keep his grip. And the pressure built, and it built, and it built, and it soon became too much, and he found each of his fingers starting to let go in exhaustion and shame. One by one, he lost his grip. And all that remained was one tiny finger. And with the last of his strength, the prince yelled out, "Why are you doing this to me?" And he let go. But just as he let go, the dragon leveled out abruptly. And the prince was shocked to see he was still alive atop the dragon. And strangely, the dragon had begun flying back up toward the top of the cliff. This eerie quiet followed, and the prince couldn't help but wonder, what do I do now? The dragon didn't answer, but the boy suddenly heard the softest whisper from within. You know what you must do. A moment later, the prince and dragon emerged from the top of the clouds. Everyone in the kingdom gasped in awe. The prince thanked the dragon as it turned and flew off into the white clouds above. Thank God you're alive, the king said as he rushed up to his son. What the hell were you thinking? Father, please, you don't have much time left. Can you trust me? The boy asked, with a tone he never dared utter before. The king nodded his head and took the prince's right hand. The queen took the king's hand, and everyone else took one another's hands until they formed a line of people facing the cliff, standing side by side, stretching out as far as the eyes could see. Tears began to emerge from the prince's eyes as he thought of all the feelings of frustration he had over so many years, all the judgments he faced, all the times he felt like such a disappointment, despite years of knowing this was all wrong. And all of it came out of him as he yelled out with every cell in his body. And it was so loud, everyone in the kingdom felt inspired to do the same. And then he started running toward the edge of the cliff, and the rest of the kingdom followed. But as they got to the very edge, the prince stopped suddenly, and the kingdom mirrored his every move. He could sense the fear, doubt, and insecurity in everyone. He could sense it still even in himself. And he stood there breathing deeply. Son, what is it? His father started to ask. But his question was cut short by the roar of the dragon of doom, coming from nowhere anyone could see. The prince extended his other hand into the air like he did in his dream. He smiled toward his father, and together he, the king, and the rest of the kingdom took one more step. Now, since that day, many generations have passed. Different legends speak of what happened to the prince, his father, and the rest of the kingdom. Some say as they leapt into the air, the dragon reappeared above them, its eagle claws suddenly transformed into a hand that took hold of the prince's. Others say the entire kingdom foolishly and painfully plummeted to their death. Some say together they soared through the air, holding tightly to one another, all ultimately at the mercy of the dragon of doom. And many simply say the blanket of clouds mysteriously burned off, never to return, and a fate shared by everyone from the kingdom. The only thing everyone can agree on at this point is that no matter how different the legends are, they all end in the same way. You must decide for yourself. I invite you to just take a moment and notice what you're noticing. Notice your body, how it's feeling in this moment. Notice if there's a part that's staying with you or that you felt a strong reaction to. Notice if there's a character that you felt a really strong reaction to. Any of the characters. And try to tune in to see if there was a part that made you feel resistance, discomfort, or unsettled. And if you're willing, from this place right here, right now, ask yourself why. And dare to hear the answer that comes from inside you. It might be a whisper, but I promise you that whisper has incredible wisdom in it. These ancient stories, these indigenous stories, have a remarkable way of not just getting us into this different part of our brain, but speaking to our soul. And these stories give surface area for parts of ourselves that we often don't notice, that we don't see because our emotions are so high, or our thoughts and stories keep us only to a certain depth of courage and curiosity to look in and to really see what's going on. But these stories where we feel resonance or dissonance or feel anger or feel freedom or whatever are speaking to us. And in a way, it's your soul speaking to you, trying to give you guidance right here, right now, on things that you can incorporate into your day without having to blow up your life, that allow you to begin to foster greater alignment so that you can experience well-being and fulfillment right here, right now, not sometime way out in the future. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions and want to share your reflections or experience or ask additional questions about this story, reach out. I'm happy to talk. And I hope you have a great day.